some of the, like I said, bigger companies, I think, don't do enough to support and give their tenants a sort of dignified living situation. There's problems with pests, there's problems with safety, common area maintenance I've seen problems with. So I think that there are certain things that the city can do that I think the renters would really appreciate if they showed some support for the renters in the city.
This episode of Bring Back the Porch, brought to you by Bernie Leahy, River Street Realty. Let's get you home. Kevin Monson joins us on the porch today to talk about the civic election that is happening on October the 20th. Welcome to the porch, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Brian. Yeah.
Just the first question I ask all the candidates is,
Sure.
Why?
Why? Well, that's a good question these days.
Maybe you've asked yourself that question.
Yeah. Well, we have an 8-month-old baby, or 8-week-old baby at home, so I have asked myself that a few times over the last few weeks. But I've always been interested in municipal politics, provincial politics, federal politics, and looking to dip my toes in. I like to challenge myself, try new things as much as I can, I really care about this community. I've lived here pretty much my whole life, and like I mentioned, we just had our first child 8 weeks ago, so looking to do what I can to make this community a better place for me and for his generation.
Any particular issue that you're passionate about that has driven you to become a candidate?
Economic development obviously is a pretty important one for everybody. Small business, that's pretty common though. I'd say one that's maybe unique to me though. We hear a lot of people talking about housing and how to improve housing, get more housing here. Obviously, I'm quite passionate about that. A lot of people my generation, they say may never be able to afford a home. So I'd, like to do what I can to help change that. But one thing that I've seen that not many candidates have talked about so far is help with, there's a lot of renters in the city, and obviously the municipal government can't do much in terms of rent controls and helping the cost of renting in some ways, but I do think that a lot of the sort of apartment style, affordable apartments in Medicine Hat are usually owned by only 1 or 2 or 3 companies. And you see people online saying, "Oh, I'm moving to Medicine Hat, looking for a place to live," and you hear people complaining about the state of the apartment style homes in this city, because a lot of landlords. I'm a renter myself. I'm lucky though. My landlord's great, very easy to communicate with, very responsive to anything I need. But a lot of people aren't so lucky. Some of the, like I said, bigger companies, I think, don't do enough to support and give their tenants a sort of dignified living situation. There's problems with pests, there's problems with safety, common area maintenance I've seen problems with. So I think that there are certain things that the city can do that I think the renters would really appreciate if they showed some support for the renters in the city.
What would some of the things that you think the city could do or city council can do?
Yeah, well, city council, one thing is obviously, is more of a kind of indirect way to help would be just to build more housing in Medicine Hat, put a bit of downward market pressure on some of the prices and maybe force some of the bigger companies to be a bit more competitive in what they're offering. But we need houses of all types. We need single, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments. We need bigger houses. We need a wide range of housing in the city. But I do think that building more houses would definitely help. And there's a couple actually apartment complexes going up right now that I'm hoping definitely helps some of that problem. But one way that, and I'm not saying this exact thing would work in Medicine Hat, but something along these lines, Hamilton, Ontario's got a safe apartment buildings bylaw. Basically, apartment buildings over a certain size or a certain number of floors needs to register with the city, and they need to post in a common area communication board for all their tenants, how to communicate and contact, because that's another issue I've heard is people can't contact their landlords, especially in the middle of the night. Their water heater breaks down, and I've heard some communication issues people have raised to me. And this part of the safe apartment buildings bylaw, they have to post a communication board with how to reach the landlord if issues go wrong, how to report things, but also they have to post safety plans, pest control plans, maintenance plans, and things like that. And it's just a way that the city can kind of hold some of those landlords more accountable that, in my opinion, don't really put the effort in offering a dignified living situation and some of those more kind of affordable style apartment housing.
How would the city attract new developers to build these new complexes?
Well, that's a big topic right now, isn't it? There's a lot of different ways. One way I think that we can do it is having another look. I mean, you've heard probably of the offsite levies is a big one that people are talking about right now, trying to do. Well, I know a lot of other cities, like Medicine Hat, we don't exactly charge the most for offsite levies. We don't charge the least amount, but we're definitely, for a mid-city size, we do charge quite a bit for those offsite levies. And I think that if we're going to attract developers for housing or other industries, we're going to have to help out with those offsite levies in some way, whether that be direct incentives to developers or whether that be some sort of payment plans that they can do. Because right now, like, there's certain cities where you can pay it back over a certain number of years. There's an option that way. But I think other than the offsite levies, I think there's just, a lot of, when you're starting a development in Medicine Hat, it's almost like you need a master's degree in municipal policies, whether it's a small business or a big development. It's like you go down to City Hall and you want to just tear your hair out because there's so many points of contact, so many people that you have to talk to that are differing experts on certain things. And, especially if you're a small business trying to start something like that, it's a bit of a nightmare. So I think one thing the city could do is try to create, like, whether it be a business development officer or something like that, somebody that's a single point of contact at City Hall for some of the developments, whether it be small business or big business, that can maybe help business development weed through some of that application process and the fees and the permits and the applications and all these things. The red tape. As some would call the red tape. That word gets thrown around a lot these days without much explanation, but that would be what I would consider red tape for sure, yeah. But yeah, having a central point of contact at City Hall, I think, would be huge, especially for bigger developments that have a lot of moving parts for sure.
You are in a younger demographic. A lot of the candidates.
Well, thank you. I'd like to say I am. Yeah.
That is refreshing to see.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the younger people today, I don't care about politics. I don't know anything about it. How do you get people like yourself interested in it?
Well, it is a tough thing. Voting records show as well. The turnout of people my age or between 18 and 35, which I'm just made it in there. It's
you're 19?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I wish. No, I'm 34, but yeah, no, it's, the voting records, it's pretty, the voter turnout in general is bad, but I think particularly for the younger people, which is unfortunate because some of the young people don't realize that there is a lot of things that the city can do to make this a better place for them to live, now and in the future. Some of these developments that this next city council will start might not come to fruition for 10, 15 years down the road when they're kind of more into what I would say voting age of, the middle-aged people that vote more. But I think one thing that the city should do, and maybe in cooperation with the schools, is I'd like to see, city councilors get out in the community more, particularly geared towards young people, and try to maybe to explain, whether it be at high school, seminars or whatever it is, and try to explain to the young people, catch it early and kind of try to foster that interest in local politics and local community early, because that might, turn out with more voting and more interest in local community politics.
Tell me a little bit about your life experience.
So, like I said, I was born and raised in Medicine Hat. First ever job was at the Town Theater, just a stone's throw from here. I was there when they shut it down, actually. So, unfortunately, I did get laid off from my first job, but due to no fault of my own. And then, I've done plenty of jobs around Medicine Hat. I've got quite a dynamic background, I would say. I've got a lot of front-facing role experience with customer service, management, things like that. I've worked some trades. I worked on cell phone towers in the area for one winter, which was not a particularly fun winter, you can imagine. But yeah, I've got quite a dynamic background. Most of my professional experience comes from, I was the manager of a zipline and adventure park out in the Cypress Hills. I don't know if you've ever been ziplining in the Cypress Hills, but I was a manager there for nearly 10 years, and that was it was a very rewarding experience, a very positive environment. And I think that's what City Council needs right now, some positivity, give some people some hope that City Council can gain their trust back. But yeah, a lot of management experience through that role, leadership experience in some pretty fast-paced environment. And then currently right now I'm working at the Medicine Hat College. I work in the library and I'm also a part-time instructor.
So you have experience with dealing with customers.
Tough customers sometimes, yes. Yeah. Telling people they're too heavy to go ziplining sometimes can be a bit tough.
Takes trees start to go like
yeah,
this.
exactly. It takes some expert communication sometimes for sure. But yeah, and like I said, it was a very dynamic role, and I got a lot of really good experience out of that. And then working at the college as well, it's given me some more, it's what they consider a quasi-government, organization. So there's definitely a lot more policy and things like that, which is really nice to get some experience with. But yeah, I would say more than anything, I find myself just a very capable person. If you ask me to get something done, you can bet that I will do it no matter what. If I don't know how to do it, I will learn how to do it.
Have you watched City Council closely over the last number of years?
Yeah, fairly closely. I've attended quite a few virtual meetings, over the last few years, especially with some of the, should I say, excitement that's happened over the last little while. And but yeah, I've taken a bit of fairly keen interest. I try to make it out as many community events as I can, and I try to keep up to date on as much of the kind of breaking news of Medicine Hat on where certain developments are, as much as I can. But, a lot of the candidates, none of us are going to be experts going in, no matter who gets elected. I think there's a lot of information out there. And I think that more than anything, that whoever gets on council, whether that be me or someone else, needs to be someone that's very good at learning, because there's going to be things that pop up that you're going to need to learn quick before you make a decision.
What have the people been telling you so far early in your campaign about what is important to them?
Well, that's a very good question. A lot of people, obviously, affordability is a major concern, which, there's limited control over what municipal council has over that. But I think that, attracting new business to Medicine Hat, attracting good paying jobs to Medicine Hat, keeping taxes and utilities as low as we possibly can. A lot of people are running on, lowering taxes across the board and things like that. But unfortunately, you can't really guarantee some of those things. There's a lot of moving parts, and some tax rates aren't even in our control. Some of them are set by the provincial government, like the education portion, that we as a city have to collect on behalf of the province. So some of those things are outside our control, but I do think the city and the council should do whatever they can to keep those affordability measures as low as they can for residents.
One of the things that I've been seeing online is people commenting, well, nobody's talking about transit. I know that is always one of those things that when I'm sitting at a red light and I look over and I see a big city bus with two people on it.
Oh, I know. It's infuriating.
Is that a good value for the money we're spending? What would you see as looking forward for transit?
I agree. Transit is one, is one of the parts of my platform I've focused on for sure. My wife and I, we've done working holidays in other countries, specifically in Australia. We worked in the Gold Coast. And I took transit every single day over there. Their transit system is extremely user-friendly. You can trust that the bus will be there exactly when it says it's going to. They've got light rail, they've got buses, they've got all sorts of options. They've got an extremely easy payment system. They've got extremely dynamic networks of buses and things like that. And in Medicine Hat, I think that's definitely one thing we're lacking. Transit, obviously, people talk about traffic easing and things like that. And city transit is one of the surefire ways to reduce congestion and reduce traffic in the city. And I think it's definitely something that should be made a priority for the next council. I think a couple of things that the city could do. First of all, if you want to use the city bus right now, there's pretty much 3 different apps that you need. There's the payment app that they have. There's a third-party app if you want to know the schedules, and then there's the rideshare or the on-demand app that are all 3 different apps. So I'd like to see a bit more streamlined bus system app that people could use. That being said, I'm sure there's a lot of seniors out there that want to use the bus that they don't want to fart around with an app. I think that we have a lot of senior living facilities in Medicine Hat. And the on-demand bus right now doesn't even cover that area of town where most of them are. It pretty much stops at Dunmore Hill. It covers the north and downtown area. I'd like to see, even if it's specifically catered towards some of those senior living facilities, I think that would get a lot of use in terms, seniors, they could try to make it easy to book, not with an app, whether it be a phone or whatever it is, or maybe partner with some of the senior living facilities to get a more regular route through there. I've also heard issues with special transit right now. I think we only have 2 special transit vehicles right now. I'd like to see a lot more accessibility on transit. And I think if we make transit an accessible and enjoyable experience, more people will use it as not just a last resort. They'll use it because they want to use it, not just because they have to.
Do you think the city's done a good job in communicating their transit plan?
They do the best. Well, I think they do the best they can, but there's definitely, room for improvement, I would say. They do, try to take public opinion here and there in the online surveys and things like that. But I think you got to get out in the community and do the best you can. Like canvass some of the areas, because a lot of people aren't going to fill out an online survey. You get maybe, 100 people fill it out. And I don't really think that reflects, the exact numbers of what it is. But yeah, I think to go back, another thing I think that we should do is, like, my mom's a senior citizen, and the thing she tells me all the time, she's like, I would use transit, but I don't want to get on 3 different buses to get where I'm going. So I think the first big priority for city transit should be cutting down on the transfers across the city. The city's not big enough that if you're going across town, you should have to get on 3 different buses, in my opinion. And then also in Southridge, there's only really one bus that goes through the one main Strachan Road, and I guess it would be the end of College Drive there, but it's like it goes down through the one street all the way through Southridge. If you're in some of those offshoots, you got to walk like 25 minutes, 30 minutes to get to just the nearest bus stop. So I think more networks, whether that be more hubs around town that they could use, but I think cutting down on transfers and having more of a network would be a huge draw.
One of the things that this next city council may have to deal with, too, is a Southside Recreation Center.
Mm-hmm. I've seen lots of posts about that, yeah.
Yeah? Are you thumbs up or thumbs down?
It's tough because I think that, I would love a recreation center on the south side, specifically a pool. There's, south of the number 1, there's really not much option for any pool. And I know there's a lot of people in town, especially seniors, I used to work at the Crestwood pool for the Parks and Recreation Department, actually. I worked the front desk there. And almost all of the customers they got at Crestwood were senior citizens, and they loved it. They loved using the lap pool there. And I know there's issues with the Crestwood pool that I've heard can be quite expensive to fix. But in my opinion, building in a whole new center versus fixing an existing building, I'd have to imagine that it would be cheaper to fix an existing building. But I'm all for a recreation center on the south side of town. That being said, it being the proposed one I've seen, the maps and things like that, it being an outdoor pool that, in Canada we can only utilize maybe 5 months of the year tops. I remember the days of the Riverside water slide, and I loved that as a kid. I think that would be a great thing. But I do think an indoor pool on the south side would be something that would be a great option. That being said, those things are expensive. So I think that this next city council really would have to look at the budgets and see if that's a priority over certain other things, like making things more affordable in town.
Riverside water slide, a lot of people get nostalgic about that.
Oh, yeah, big time.
But that was a private enterprise.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know if anybody has ever thought about maybe seeing if we can attract another entrepreneur.
Hey, there you go. Well, if you cut down some of the development fees for new entrepreneurs and new developments, that might actually happen. You never know.
Yeah. Another thing that every city councilor is going to have to prepare for if they get elected is handling our utilities. And there's a plan that maybe they would remove that from, I guess, the responsibilities of a city councilor, the municipal MCC, they call it.
Yes, the Municipally Controlled Corporation. Yeah. That's another one that there's a lot of information out there, and that's one that's tough to say for sure if there's a right or wrong answer there, because there would be pros and cons to each. I understand past councilors supporting it because it does take the heat off them a little bit in terms of running the utilities, but I think that I would be hesitant to support MCC big time because I think there would be a lot of costs involved. I think this city controlling its own utilities is, it's got its ups and downs, but I think that is not something we should give up easily and without a lot of thought, because there is a lot of benefits to it. And I think the costs of running a municipally controlled corporation, it would cost a lot of money to pay. There'd be like a board of directors or whatever it would be. I think that would cost a lot of money to run that. And I don't necessarily think that the city would see a return on that investment, unfortunately.
But would you feel comfortable as the city councilor weighing into some of this stuff that it's technical.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, I'm a great learner. I do as best I can to learn as much as I can about any given topic. And if there was a decision coming up about whether it be an MCC or whatever it is, I would learn as much as I possibly can to make an informed decision about any of those topics. But I think that it doesn't necessarily have to, the knowledge doesn't have to come directly from me. I think that city councilors have to get out in the community and ask some of the experts in the community, whether it be the Chamber of Commerce or some of the industry experts within our city, and see what their opinions are. And I take those opinions to heart and definitely use those when you're deciding which way to vote at the table.
Another problem that has been identified, not just in this campaign, but for the last probably 18 months, the homeless people,
Yes.
drug abuse in the streets, crime.
Yeah.
People have tried to link it to the mustard seed.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have a plan to move the mustard seed up onto the top of the Samus Drive,
yeah.
Red Cliff Hill.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, speaking to what I said before, I have heard directly from people quite close with Medicine Hat community housing that is a great location in their opinion, that they think it would really work. So I'm inclined to trust them. They know a lot more about community housing than I do. So I know a lot of people have their opinions on, where that's going to go or how that's going to look. But I think there was a few proposed sites in Medicine Hat, and as far as I know, that was definitely one of the ones that was more desirable. It's a decent-sized building. It can have kitchen facilities on site. A lot of people I've seen have brought up transit as an issue, but from what I'm told, transit is a lot less of an issue for kind of the unhoused population than one would think. There's a lot of options for finding a location that's going to work for a shelter is extremely difficult. Transit's, on the other hand, pretty easy, especially because some of these unhoused folks are pretty self-reliant, and I think that as far as I've heard and I'm aware, that sounds like a great location.
Do you have any political affiliation?
You know what? I've supported different parties in the past. I've had a lot of people ask me because they think that'll make their decision easier come election time. But I don't think that party affiliation should come into play in municipal elections. I think, in fact, it's counterproductive to municipal elections. Like I said, I've supported different parties in the past, but City Council needs to advocate for this community, and sometimes that's going to be advocating to a conservative, sometimes that's going to be advocating to a liberal or an NDP, and I think, putting yourself on a certain team one way or the other, not only does that, I think, gum up the works in terms of advocacy by City Council, but I also think that it automatically kind of puts you on a team. And whoever doesn't agree with that team feels like that were you to be elected, you wouldn't necessarily represent them. And I don't think that's true. I'm on one team, and that's Team Medicine Hat. So I don't want to take one side or the other. I've supported different parties in the past, but I think municipally it is counterproductive to kind of throw your hat into one side of the ring.
Do you have any particular affiliation to any of the candidates for mayor? Are you going, gee, I hope I get elected, and I hope that candidate X will be the leader of the team?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely people that everybody's got their certain set of skills. I think that, again, it's one of those things where I don't really want to throw my hat one way or the other. There's people that I think have better, experience, communication, or whatever that may be. But I think that whether I agree with that person or not, whoever gets elected, I think that it's important that we have a diverse council. So, if it's someone that agrees with some of my ideas, that's great. But if it's someone that doesn't agree with my ideas, I think that's also a good thing, because I think that council needs to be diverse. It has to have diverse voices, because if we get one kind of voting block into council that just votes together every single issue, I don't think that's a fair representation of the residents of Medicine Hat. So I'd be happy, one way or the other, whoever gets into mayor, I'd be happy to work with them, and I would be, a good part of the team, I hope.
Just curious, I know that I've heard this, I believe they do it in some of the county councils, where you elect 9 councillors, and then the councillors choose who's the head of the council.
Oh, I mean, I would think, yeah, I've never heard of that actually, but I think that is a decent idea, I think. I would find it either. You said that smaller communities.
I believe even in Cypress County, like they run
Interesting.
counselors, and then the counselors elect the reeve.
Really? Oh, yeah, like a reeve system. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, in a larger center, it's tough because I could foresee having a lot of pushback on that, because if the mayor that gets elected doesn't necessarily have a lot of public support, I can see that being a bit of an issue. But that is an interesting way to do things for sure.
Kevin Monson, candidate for Medicine Hat City Council on October 20th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.